Now let's find out what this nice red little dot is for, as well as the best way to seam rip and when it's time to unpick versus actually ripping through that fabric. The first thing you need to know about seam rippers is that they dull. So throw that thing that came with your sewing machine away, especially if you've been using it for a while. This one in particular, I've had for 15 years. It was time for an upgrade. So now I have this particular seam ripper here. I will link to a bunch of different seam rippers in the description down below if you're interested. This one I found on Etsy. It cost me a little bit extra, but what I love is that I can just replace this little end. So I can just get myself a new sharp seam ripper when I feel like this one is not working anymore. So the first thing that you will do is you will take your seam ripper and you will actually be unpicking the section where you would backstitch. So I just like to have my seam ripper on its side as I slide through, because if you put it with the point down, you're more likely to slip and the point will end up in the fabric. So just make sure that point is on its side, and then you can just nicely slide through those seams. Now, if you were not going to do the seam ripping, if you're dealing with a delicate fabric, then you would just do this method here, where you would just unpick a few stitches at a time, and then you can gently open up that fabric. Now the second method is actually the ripping method. This method works best on sturdy fabrics, as you can easily rip into your fabric if you're not careful. Again, the first thing you'll do is you will unpick the back stitch, and this is where you will use that red ball. So you will tuck it underneath and in between the fabric, and then you will push along that seam, holding the seam with your thumb and your finger, and then you can push all the way down that seam. Now, don't do it the way I'm showing you right here. I was just doing that so that you could actually see what the seam ripper would do. The best way to do it is to hold it between your thumb and your forefinger, tuck that seam ripper in, and then push along the thumb and the forefinger. Scooch your fingers down and then continue pushing down the seam that way. Next, you will be left with a whole bunch of little threads, and this is just my quick little trick. I like to use painter's tape. I find it's not so sticky that it pulls at my fabric, but it's just sticky enough. It picks up all those nice little threads. And always remember that a good seamstress uses their seam ripper. You will not get away with not using this thing as you become more experienced. I have tutorials for beginner sewers throughout my entire sewing channel, so please check that out. And I post new videos every Friday. And as always, I hope that you guys hit that subscribe button so that you don't lose me in and amongst all of the rest of the awesome sewing tutorials that are on YouTube. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.